Part 1. The Cracks in the Perfect Marriage. When I tell people about my marriage, or rather, what it used to be, they often give me that look of pity, mixed with curiosity, like they're waiting for the twist in some soap opera. But the truth is, from the outside, we looked perfect. Instagram perfect, family photo on the mantle perfect, smiling at corporate parties perfect. My husband, Daniel, was the type of man who knew how to charm people. He wasn't movie star handsome, but he had this air of confidence, the kind that made people believe whatever words rolled off his tongue. He was funny without trying too hard, ambitious without seeming ruthless, and attentive in a way that made women swoon and men respect him. And me? I was the supportive wife, the steady rock behind his rising career, the hostess who threw perfect dinner parties for his colleagues, the one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries when he conveniently forgot. We had been married for 8 years. 8 long years that I thought were built on love, mutual respect, and the kind of partnership you only read about in novels. But then the cracks started to show. Tiny at first, like hairline fractures in glass, invisible to everyone but me. It started with the phone. Daniel used to be careless with it. He'd leave it lying around the house, screen lighting up with emails, texts, random sports alerts. He never bothered to hide anything because, well, he never needed to. I trusted him. We had a rhythm, a silent agreement that there were no secrets between us. But about a year ago, I noticed a change. Suddenly, his phone was always face down, notifications mysteriously silenced, late-night bathroom trips with his phone in hand. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has the right to privacy, right? Maybe he was planning a surprise for me, or maybe work was stressing him out. But then came the late nights at the office. "We're closing a big deal," he'd say, kissing me on the cheek before disappearing in a cloud of cologne and expensive suit fabric. He'd come home after midnight, smelling faintly of whiskey and something floral. Not my perfume, not mine at all. My gut screamed at me, but I ignored it, because love makes you blind, and denial is a comfortable pillow to rest on when you don't want your world to shatter. The first undeniable red flag came on a Wednesday evening in February. I was cleaning out the laundry basket when I found a receipt in his pocket, a receipt from a fancy restaurant downtown, the kind we reserved only for anniversaries. But this wasn't our anniversary, and he hadn't taken me. The receipt was for 2 people with a bottle of wine that cost more than our weekly groceries. My hands trembled as I held it, reading the date and time over and over. He had told me he was working late that night. I confronted him casually, testing the waters. "How was your meeting yesterday?" I asked, serving him dinner like nothing was wrong. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just launched into a rehearsed story about corporate negotiations, market strategies, and how exhausted he was. He lied to me face to face without a crack in his voice. That night, while he showered, I sat in the dark of our bedroom staring at the ceiling, listening to the water run. Something inside me shifted. The first seed of suspicion grew roots. I started watching him closely after that. Not obsessively, at least not at first, but enough to notice patterns. The way he smiled at texts, the quick swipes to clear his notifications when I walked into the room, the sudden need for cologne even when he was just grabbing coffee. I began to feel like a detective in my own home, piecing together a puzzle I didn't want to solve. And then there was her. I didn't know who she was at the time, but I started to pick up on a name, Rachel. He said it once in his sleep, a soft mumble that jolted me awake. Another time I overheard him on the phone, his voice lower, softer, the kind a man doesn't use for business. "No, Rachel, I can't tonight. She'll notice." She. Me. I kept a poker face, even when my heart raced with the kind of dread you can't explain. I wasn't going to confront him again. Not yet. I wasn't going to be the hysterical wife who screamed accusations without proof. No, if Daniel was cheating on me, I was going to know for sure. So I waited, and I watched. The breakthrough came when he left his laptop open one morning before work. Normally he was careful, logging out of everything, but that day, maybe in his rush, he forgot. I shouldn't have done it, but I couldn't stop myself. I opened his email, and there it was, an e-ticket confirmation for a weekend getaway. 2 seats, a romantic boutique hotel in the mountains. Valentine's weekend. My breath caught in my throat. He had told me he had a conference that weekend. My hand shook so hard I nearly dropped the laptop. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to call him and demand answers. But instead, I closed the laptop quietly, put on a smile when he came downstairs for his coffee, and kissed him goodbye, like nothing was wrong. Because at that moment, something inside me hardened. The betrayal was real. The love I thought we had, it was a facade. And I realized I wasn't going to cry, beg, or plead. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I was going to get even. But revenge isn't something you rush. It's not a spur-of-the-moment tantrum. True revenge is cold, calculated, and patient. It's a chess game, and I had just made my opening move. For the next few weeks, I started documenting everything: receipts, text times, his work schedule. I created a secret folder on my own laptop, gathering every shred of evidence. I even followed him once, heart pounding as I trailed his car to a hotel 2 towns over. And there she was, Rachel. Young, blonde, all legs and laughter. She looked like the kind of woman who thrived on being the other woman. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, watching them walk in together, his hand on her lower back like I was nothing, like our marriage was disposable. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I smiled, because now I knew for certain. And knowing gave me power. Daniel had no idea that his lies were crumbling around him, that every secret meeting, every text, every stolen kiss was another nail in the coffin of his perfect little double life. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: you don't betray a woman who has nothing left to lose. Because when the time comes, she'll take everything from you.
Part 2. Building the Trap. The strangest thing about discovering your husband is cheating is how calm you can feel once the denial dies. The tears, the shock, the late-night questions of, "What did I do wrong?" All of it turns into something sharper, colder. It's like your heart gets dipped in ice, and suddenly you see the world with brutal clarity. I knew Daniel was cheating. I had proof. But proof alone wasn't enough for me. Proof only brings confrontation. And confrontation leads to messy arguments, slammed doors, or maybe, if I was lucky, a guilty confession. But confessions don't ruin a man. No, if I wanted true satisfaction, I needed to play the long game. So I started planning. The first step was information. I had to know everything about Rachel. Who she was, where she lived, what she wanted from him. If she was just a fling, maybe she'd get bored eventually, but the romantic hotel getaway suggested otherwise. He wasn't just lusting after her, he was investing in her. That made her dangerous. I hired a private investigator. Not the kind you see in movies, trench coat and fedora, but a discreet woman named Claire who came highly recommended by a friend of a friend. She wasn't cheap, but money was the least of my concerns. If Daniel could afford to wine and dine Rachel, then I could afford to pay someone to dig into both of them. Within 2 weeks, I had a folder on my desk filled with photos and reports. Rachel was 27. She worked as an executive assistant at Daniel's firm. Divorced once already. She rented a small apartment downtown and seemed to spend money faster than she earned it. There were pictures of them together, coffee shops, parking garages, his car parked outside her building overnight. The sight of those photos made bile rise in my throat. But I forced myself to study them, not as a wife, but as a strategist. Because Rachel wasn't just a mistress, she was leverage. Meanwhile, I continued my performance as the loving, clueless wife. Breakfast on the table, polite conversation, even the occasional intimacy when he made the effort. I smiled at him across the dinner table while picturing the look on his face when the walls came crashing down. He had no idea that every day he kissed me goodbye, I was one step closer to destroying him. The second step was control. Daniel and I shared finances, joint accounts, investments, even a shared credit card. But over the years, I'd set up a quiet safety net of my own, a savings account he didn't know about, tucked away under my maiden name. I had access to everything, though, and I started paying closer attention. And oh, the things I found. Hotel charges, cleverly labeled as business expenses. Jewelry purchases that never made their way into my jewelry box. Even transfers of money to an account I didn't recognize. Rachel's, no doubt. He was funding her lifestyle with our money. That was my breaking point. Cheating was one thing, but using the life we built together to bankroll his affair, that lit a fire in me so hot I could barely sleep. I wasn't just going to catch him, I was going to strip him of everything. The third step was allies. You see, revenge isn't just about what you know, it's about who you can convince. Daniel's entire identity revolved around his reputation. At work, he was the golden boy. Among friends, the reliable, funny husband. To his family, the doting son. My plan required dismantling each of those images piece by piece. So I started laying groundwork. With his family, I dropped subtle comments about how busy he'd been, how distant. Nothing that screamed cheating, but enough to plant seeds of doubt. With our friends, I joked about how he practically lived at the office. Laughter covered the edge in my voice, but people remember those little comments. And with his job, well, I had bigger plans there. Because remember Rachel? She wasn't just a mistress, she was also an employee, and workplace affairs have consequences. I began keeping a diary. Every late night, every excuse, every time he left the house with a fresh shave and cologne but claimed he was meeting a client, I logged receipts, bank statements, photos. My little black book of betrayal, ready to explode when the time was right. But I didn't rush. Revenge is like cooking a perfect meal. It takes time, seasoning, patience. Serve it too early and it falls flat. Wait until everything aligns, and it's unforgettable. One evening, as Daniel hummed in the shower, his phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from Rachel. "I can't wait for this weekend. Love you." Love you. I stared at those words until my vision blurred. My husband wasn't just cheating. He was in love, or at least playing the role of a man in love. And that was fine. Because if Rachel thought she was stepping into the role of his future, she was about to inherit every nightmare I could create. The turning point came a few days later, when Claire, my PI, handed me a flash drive. "You'll want to see this," she said simply. That night, after Daniel left for another late meeting, I sat at my desk with my laptop. On the screen, video footage played. Daniel and Rachel in a hotel lobby, kissing like teenagers. Daniel handing the valet a tip, his hand resting low on her back. Rachel laughing up at him like he hung the moon. But it was what Claire caught next that made my blood run cold. Daniel pulling out his phone, checking his messages, and then turning to Rachel with a grin. She has no idea. She was me. I sat in the glow of the laptop, my heart steady, my breath even. I wasn't broken. I wasn't destroyed. I was more alive than I had felt in years, because I finally understood what real power felt like. And Daniel, my sweet, oblivious husband, he had just handed me the weapon I needed to obliterate him.
Part 3. The Fall of the Golden Boy. There's a saying I came across once. Revenge is not about destroying someone quickly, it's about making them watch their empire collapse, brick by brick.
That became my mantra. I didn't want Daniel to just get caught. I wanted him to feel the slow unraveling of his carefully curated life. The career he worshipped, the friends who praised him, the family who adored him, all of it had to slip through his fingers like sand. And the beauty of it was that he would never see me coming. Step 1. Work. Daniel's entire ego rested on his job. He wasn't just an employee, he was a rising star in his firm. Promotions came easy to him. Handshakes and backslaps followed him through corporate parties. He loved being the guy everyone admired. So, naturally, that had to be the first domino to fall. I started small. Anonymous emails to HR. Concerned notes about inappropriate behavior between a senior manager and his assistant. Screenshots of texts, receipts, even hotel booking confirmations. Everything neatly packaged and impossible to ignore. But I wasn't sloppy. I didn't dump everything at once. No, I fed the fire slowly, just enough to raise eyebrows, spark whispers in the office halls. By the time the company's compliance department opened an internal investigation, Daniel was already looking over his shoulder. I could see the tension in him at home, the way he snapped more easily, poured one extra glass of whiskey, scrolled through his phone with a permanent frown. He had no idea I was the one tightening the noose. The day he came home early, slamming his briefcase on the counter, I almost smiled. "They're questioning my professionalism," he muttered. "Someone's spreading lies." Lies? I nearly laughed. Oh, Daniel, if only you knew how much truth hurts more than lies. Step 2. Friends. We had a tight-knit group, couples we dined with, people we vacationed with. For years, they thought we were the perfect marriage. Daniel loved playing that role, basking in their admiration. So, I decided to introduce a little reality. Over wine nights and casual brunches, I started dropping subtle comments. "Daniel's been working late a lot. I worry sometimes." Or, "Funny, he said he was with you last Thursday. Oh, maybe I misunderstood." Never direct accusations. Just seeds, tiny doubts, watered carefully until they sprouted. People talk, friends compare notes, and soon enough their smiles toward Daniel became tighter, their questions sharper. I knew it was working when one of our friends, Megan, leaned in during a girls' night and whispered, "Honey, if you ever need to talk about Daniel, I'm here." I feigned confusion, forced a little laugh. Why would I need to? But inside, I glowed. The foundation of his perfect husband act was crumbling, and he didn't even know it. Step 3. Family. His parents adored him. He was their pride, their golden child. To them, I was just the lucky woman who got to marry him. That image had to die too. So I visited them one afternoon, bringing along a pie like the dutiful daughter-in-law. Over tea, I sighed, "Daniel's been under so much stress lately. Sometimes I wonder if he's happy with me anymore." His mother frowned. "What do you mean?" I hesitated, lowering my eyes like I was revealing something painful. "He's been distant, always gone. I keep telling myself it's just work, but sometimes I wonder if there's someone else." The silence that followed was delicious. I didn't accuse, I didn't cry, I simply planted the thought and let them run with it. Parents know their children better than anyone. The next time Daniel slipped up, even slightly, they'd remember my words. Step 4. Finances. This was my favorite part. I had spent weeks combing through our accounts, noting every shady transaction, jewelry, hotel stays, transfers to Rachel's account. He thought he was clever, but Daniel was careless with money when his ego got involved. So I started moving quietly, redirecting funds from our joint account into my private one, canceling cards by accident, letting bills go unpaid, and then paying them myself, but not in his name. It was a slow bleed. Nothing obvious enough for him to notice right away, but eventually, the "where did the money go" questions began. "Have you seen the credit card bill?" he snapped one night. I looked up from my book with wide, innocent eyes. "No, why?" "Charges are missing. Maybe the bank made a mistake," I suggested sweetly. His frustration grew with every unexplained discrepancy. Meanwhile, my account grew healthier by the day. The breaking point. The final nail came in the form of one perfectly timed text message. Not to Daniel, to Rachel. I had copied his exact texting style, short, casual, the kind of messages he sent her late at night. Using a burner phone, I typed, "We need to slow down. Someone's asking questions. It's too risky. Maybe it's best if we stop seeing each other." And I hit send. For days afterwards, Daniel was restless, glued to his phone, trying to soothe the furious Rachel, who believed he was pulling away. She showed up at his office once, screaming at him in the lobby. His coworkers saw everything. HR definitely saw everything. The golden boy was slipping, and I was holding the scissors to cut the final thread. At night, I lay beside him as he tossed and turned, sweat beading on his forehead. He had no idea that the woman smiling gently at him, asking if he was okay, was the same woman who had orchestrated every domino falling around him. And the best part? He trusted me completely. "Something's going on," he muttered one night. "I think someone's trying to ruin me." I kissed his cheek softly. "Don't worry, love. I'm sure it'll all work out." Inside, I was laughing, because soon his whole life would be nothing but ashes.
Part 4. One text to end it all. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper, a quiet tap on a screen, a single message that detonates years of lies. By the time I was ready, Daniel was already a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. The cracks I carved into his world had grown into fault lines. All that was left was to deliver the final quake. The setup. By now, Daniel was barely holding it together. Work had launched a formal investigation into his conduct. Rachel, humiliated and furious, had stopped being discreet. She wanted answers. She wanted commitment, and she didn't care who heard her screaming in his office lobby. His friends had started pulling away, awkward excuses replacing dinner invitations. Even his parents called me privately, concerned about his strange behavior. But Daniel still clung to the idea that he could juggle it all. That his wife, his mistress, his job, his friends, and his reputation could all be balanced if he just worked hard enough. That's what made it so satisfying. The move. It came down to one text. One perfectly timed, carefully worded text. Rachel was the key. She thought Daniel loved her. She thought she was the future. So I sent her the truth, or rather, a carefully constructed truth. From an anonymous number, I sent her screenshots, copies of his messages to me, the affectionate "love you babe" ones, copies of his financial transfers, even proof of him researching weekend getaways with another woman entirely. Thank you, Claire the PI, for digging that one up. And then I wrote, "He's playing you, just like he's playing me. Ask him about the promotion he promised you. Ask him about the engagement ring he bought for someone else. You'll see." Rachel's explosion was nuclear. She didn't just confront him privately, she marched straight into his office with receipts. In front of his coworkers, his boss, HR. She screamed about how he used her, about the money, about the lies. Every word she shouted was another dagger, and I had sharpened every blade. Daniel's carefully built empire at work collapsed in minutes. The HR department didn't need to deliberate long. Relationship with a subordinate? Misuse of company funds? Reputation tarnished beyond repair? He was done. Fired. Effective immediately. The fallout. He came home that night like a storm. Red-faced, shaking, his voice hoarse from yelling. "You won't believe what they did to me! Lies! All lies!" I sat at the kitchen table, calm as a saint, sipping tea. Oh, Daniel, maybe it's just karma. The look he gave me could have killed, but he still didn't suspect. Not me. Never me. The next day, I sent the final message. This time to his parents, to his friends, to every person that mattered in his little world. Screenshots, photos, evidence, neatly packaged, no commentary needed. Just the truth of who Daniel really was. By the end of the week, his phone barely rang. Friends ghosted him. His parents were deeply disappointed. Rachel? She vanished, but not before draining what little money she'd slipped her way. My exit. The last piece of my plan was personal. I filed for divorce. Not a messy one, not a fight. A clean, cold, legal strike. With all the evidence I had, my lawyer smiled like a wolf. "This is going to be easy," she said. And it was. I walked away with the house, the savings I had tucked aside, and my head held high. Daniel walked away with debt, a ruined reputation, no job, and no one left to defend him. On the day the divorce was finalized, I sent him a single text. "Remember when you said I had no idea? I knew everything." And then I blocked his number. The aftermath. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, if maybe I should have just left quietly, spared myself the months of scheming. But regret is for people who still care. I don't regret a thing. Daniel destroyed our marriage long before I destroyed him. The difference is, I made sure he paid for it. And the sweetest part? He'll never be sure how it all fell apart. He'll never know the woman lying next to him every night was the same one orchestrating his downfall. He'll never know that the one text that ruined his life came from me.